I never thought I'd miss prison. Not the food, not the walls, not the clank of metal doors every morning. But there are parts of it that settled under my skin and stayed. The stillness, the way time moved like cold syrup, and him, especially. Him, back then, I wasn't thinking about love. I was thinking about survival. You don't walk into county with soft eyes and open arms. You learn to stay sharp, to speak less, to keep your head down. And that was me, quiet, obedient, hands always folded, eyes on the floor. Then Reyes showed up. They put him in the bunk across from mine after his third fight in the block upstairs. I remember the first time I saw him, just a silhouette through the cell bars, backlit by corridor light, broad shoulders, that heavy walk, and the voice low, careless, like he didn't care if you liked him or not. Most guys stayed away, not because he was dangerous, but because Reyes didn't play by anyone's rhythm but his own. He didn't laugh at jokes, didn't bother with alliances, he just existed. But then one night he noticed me. It was over something stupid I dropped. My toothpaste while getting ready for lights out. Bent down to grab it. He chuckled. I froze. You always that careful with your stuff, he said, grinning. I didn't answer, just nodded, eyes back on my bunk. The next day, he shared his orange slices with me during lunch. The day after, he handed me a folded paper scrap, a sketch of the yard, detailed, beautiful, like a photograph drawn in ink. No words, just that dot, and just like that, we started. Whatever it was we had. Now a year later, I'm standing outside the halfway house, where they just dropped me off, holding a single duffel, and all I can think about is him, his eyes when the guards called his name. The way he looked at me like he was memorizing my face. You're getting out. Good, he'd said. That was it. He never said goodbye. But the thing about Reyes was he didn't say much unless he meant it. So when he'd nudged my shoulder that night before I left and told me, don't forget how to be soft, even if the world still wants you hard, I knew it was his way of saying something bigger. He's out too now. Got released 2 months. Before me, they sent him to a rehab work program in the desert, some kind of landscaping unit out near the state park. I never said I'd visit. He never asked me to. But here I am, stuffing my old hoodie into my duffel and heading toward the bus stop. I found the flyer for the program crumpled in the bottom of my belongings bag. Maybe I put it there on purpose, maybe not. All I know is, I've spent every night since my release, walking past a payphone on the corner and wondering what I'd say if I called. Now I don't have to say anything, I'm just showing up. The bus ride is 3 hours. I stare out the window the whole way, miles of red dust and open road. I don't know if he'll recognize me, if he'll care, but I keep picturing that night in the showers, when I dropped the soap and he reached for it before I could, not even making a joke, just handing it back like it meant something, his fingers brushing mine. That half smile that lingered longer than it needed to. He never touched me again, but he didn't have to. That one moment it was enough to keep me holding on. Now I'm stepping off the bus. Dry heat presses against my skin. Somewhere out here Reyes is planting trees in the dirt. Somewhere he's still wearing that quiet defiance like a second skin, and maybe, just maybe, he remembers the weight of that one moment. The first time I actually talked to Reyes, really talked to him, was over soap. I know how that sounds, but in prison, everything's symbolic. Space, silence, even soap. One night I dropped mine again. It skidded across the grimy tile like it had somewhere better to be. The place went quiet for a beat too long. Before I could move, Reyes leaned down, picked it up, and placed it back in my hand. Relax, he said, voice low enough to make it feel like a secret. Ain't nobody watching you like that. I nodded, throat dry, but it wasn't just his words. It was the way his fingers grazed mine, purposeful, brief, but not indifferent. After that he started talking more, little things, comments during chow line, a nudge when he passed me in the yard. He'd sketch on napkins, then slide them under my tray. They were always quiet trees, hands, faces half formed in ink. I started saving them in a hollowed-out corner of my mattress. Our conversation stayed casual for a long time. That was our rhythm, easy. You ever notice how the guy in cell 6 eats like he's in a food competition? He once whispered, eyes squinting toward the chow hall benches. I snorted into my tray. It's the highlight of his day. Let the man live. Reyes smiled, tapping his fork against his cup like applause. We weren't friends exactly, not in the way you are on the outside. Inside, you didn't call someone your friend. You watched their back, or you didn't. You shared commissary, or you didn't. With Reyes, I didn't have to ask. If I was looking tired, he'd slide half an energy bar into my pocket during If my knuckles were red from the cold pipes, I'd find a wrapped tissue with balm on my bunk, but it wasn't just kindness. There was this energy between us, quiet, constant. Sometimes I'd look up and catch him already watching me, not staring, just noticing. His eyes would stay there a second longer than they needed to. And when I met his gaze, he never looked away first. I remember once, during count, I asked him where he learned to draw. My brother, he said, eyes distant, taught me how to shade with pencil when I was 10, still close. He didn't answer, just folded his arms, staring at the wall until the guard finished passing. I didn't ask again, but he bumped his foot into mine under the table at dinner that night. A quiet thank you. And somehow, moments like that said more than anything he could have told me. One night, they moved the guy who bunked above me. I thought I'd finally get some peace, but then they told me Reyes was being transferred into my cell, temporary. Just a few weeks. The guard muttered, like it mattered, shrugged as he dropped his thin blanket onto the top bunk. Hope I don't snore. You probably do, I said. You'd know. Let's just say the walls are thin. He chuckled, low and warm. Then I hope you don't dream out loud. I didn't say anything, but that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there listening to him breathe, slow, even calming, in a way I didn't expect. When he shifted in the middle of the night and his arm dangled over the side of the bed, his fingers almost brushing the top of my shoulder, I froze. Didn't move until morning. Later, during exercise hour, we sat shoulder to shoulder on the cracked pavement beside the handball court. You sleep all right? He asked, tossing a small rock between his fingers. Yeah, I lied. Cool. He paused, then added, I almost kicked you in the face. I laughed. You didn't, yet. Those small exchanges built into something steady, predictable. We always sat together during meals, always walked laps during rec, even if we weren't talking. He once gave me a corner of his pillowcase, said I could sketch with the tip of a paperclip if I was careful. I didn't know he noticed I stared at his drawings like that. Then, one afternoon, the showers backed up, water cut off, guards shouted, guys were yelling and stripped down halfway, then cussing because the plumbing was out. I was already undressed when it happened, towel slung low around my waist. You good? Reyes asked, glancing over from his side of the locker wall. He had his shirt off, abs tight, scar visible on his left side, the one I always wondered about. I nodded, maybe too fast. Yeah, I'm fine. He stared at me for a second, a beat too long, then he smiled, slow, crooked. Relax, he murmured. Ain't nobody watching you like that. Same words, different tone, but my heart thudded harder than it should have. That night, when we both lay in the dark, I whispered Reyes. Yeah. I paused. Nothing. Just never mind. He didn't press, just let the silence stretch between us like something sacred. And I swear, before he drifted off, his foot touched mine under the blanket, brief, barely there, but I didn't move away. We got locked in together by accident. That's not how it sounds. It was a routine maintenance sweep. They did it every few months, shutting off power block by block, checking for wiring issues, sometimes fumigating cells for bugs. Most of us got moved to the yard or library, but a mix-up left our names off the roster, so there we were, Reyes and I stuck in our shared cell, door sealed, lights dimmed, no one remembering we were in there until morning. I heard the clank of the lock and knew right away. You hear that? I asked, sitting up on the lower bunk. Reyes glanced from the window. Yeah, he muttered. They just sealed the wing. He didn't sound alarmed, just resigned. I pressed my palm against the door, dead silent outside. You think they'll come back? Reyes gave a one-shouldered shrug. Probably not till morning. They'll realize 2 pillows ain't warm when they do the final count. I sat down slowly. So we're stuck here all night. He nodded, stretching his legs out. Just us, cozy. There was something in his voice, not mocking, not quite flirty either, but it sent a ripple through my chest. The cell was barely big enough for one man to move without brushing into steel or cement. With 2 of us, it became something else. Entirely, the air thicker, the space tighter. Reyes reached up, tugging off his overshirt, leaving just his white tank. The fabric clung to his chest, collarbone damp with sweat. I looked away too quickly, pretended to examine the sink. You good? He asked, noticing. Yeah, just warm, he chuckled. You've always been a bad liar. I opened my mouth to deflect, but didn't say anything because he was right. I wasn't okay. Not when I could smell the faint scent of his skin like soap ink and worn cotton. Not when the only place to sit besides the bed was the floor, and I wasn't about to reduce the tension by crouching down like a scared animal, so I sat on the edge of the lower bunk, legs stretched out stiffly. Reyes sat down beside me without asking. Close. Too close. Our knees brushed. He didn't move, my breath caught. You remember the night you asked me about my brother, he said. After a long silence, I nodded slowly. He OD'd the same week I got locked up, Reyes murmured. I never told anyone, not even my po. I looked at him, surprised. Why me? I asked quietly. His eyes flicked to mine. You listen without flinching. The words struck deeper than they should have. My chest tightened. I wanted to say something meaningful. Instead I said, you snore, by the way. He laughed, soft and real. I knew it, he said, nudging my leg with his dot, and for a few minutes, we slipped back into our rhythm. Small talk, quiet smiles, the shared language of two people who didn't say much, but felt too much. Then the lights flickered. The hum of the backup generator kicked in, buzzing low and steady. The air felt heavier. You can take the bunk, I offered, standing up. Nah, he said, grabbing my wrist gently. Split it. My breath stilled. He let go immediately. Unless that's weird. I shook my head too fast. No, I mean it's fine, just tight. That's all. He smirked. We've been tighter. It was a joke. Maybe, maybe not. But I laid back down on the narrow bunk, turning slightly toward the wall to give him space. When he climbed in behind me, the entire mattress shifted. I could feel the weight of him, his thigh against mine, chest barely brushing my back with each breath. We didn't speak. For a while, we just lay there. Then his hand grazed my hip. Accidental, I told myself. But it didn't move right away. His fingers lingered. Not firm, not possessive. Just resting. Like he needed the contact. My mind spun. What if I leaned back? Just slightly. What if I said his name? Would it ruin everything? Because up until now, whatever existed between us lived in the space between glances, in the hesitation of hands not quite touching. It was safe. That way, undefined, protected. But now his thumb traced a soft line against my side. Barely there. I closed my eyes, heart thudding. I always thought about this, he said quietly, voice near my neck. I swallowed. Hard what? This, he repeated. Being this close to you. No guards, no eyes, no consequences. His voice cracked on the last word. I turned toward him, slow, uncertain. We were nose to nose, and in the dim light, his eyes looked softer than I'd ever seen them. Why didn't you ever say anything? I whispered. He exhaled, gaze flicking, to my lips, then back. Because it's easier wanting something from a distance, he said. If you touch it, it can vanish. His honesty cut through me. Not dramatic, just true. I reached up, brushing a strand of his hair away from his forehead. It was the first time I touched him on purpose. He closed his eyes like it meant something, and in that moment I realized how much I wanted him. Not just the body beside me, but the soul underneath it. The guarded, complicated man who gave his drawings like secrets and stared at me like I was the one who could ruin him. I'm scared, I admitted. So am I. His hand slid behind my back, pulling me close, not in a hungry way, not even romantic yet, just steady, sure. Our foreheads touched. You don't have to say anything, he murmured. Just don't pull away. I didn't, and I wouldn't, not anymore. The morning came, but the guards didn't. Some issue with the power grid, Reyes guessed. They locked the whole maintenance wing down and forgot about us, so the sun rose behind barred windows, pale and soft, casting long shadows across the floor. And still, no one came. We hadn't moved. All night, we lay on that narrow bunk, his hand on my back, mine resting somewhere near his chest. Our legs tangled slowly through the hours, like two men trying not to admit how badly they wanted to stay exactly where they were. I'd never felt more seen, not even touched, just seen, known, safe, that it scared the hell out of me. Reyes shifted, a little behind me, then propped himself up on one elbow. I felt the movement before I saw him. You been awake long? He asked. I nodded without turning. Didn't sleep much. Same. He paused. Then, you mad? I asked you to share the bed. I turned slowly, meeting his eyes. No, I said. Good, he replied, quiet. I didn't want to overstep. It just felt right. His words hung there, suspended between us, fragile, unprotected. I sat up, legs dangling off the bunk, elbows on my knees. My hands were clenched, and I didn't even notice until he gently touched one of them. His thumb moved over the side of my palm. Grounding. You always do that when you're thinking too hard, he said. Do what? Tense up. Like your bones don't trust your skin. I let out a breath. I'm not used to this. This being close, being honest. He didn't say anything right away. Just sat up beside me, our knees touching again. I didn't grow up around much honesty, I added. Especially not the kind that matters. He nodded. Me neither. For a while we just sat in silence. Then I looked at him, really looked. His hair was messy from sleep, and there was a faint pillow crease on his cheek. His shirt had twisted slightly at the collar, revealing the edge of his shoulders strong, scarred, real. But it wasn't his body that made my chest ache. It was the way he looked back at me, like I was something breakable and he didn't want to be the one to break it. I think I've felt this way for a while, I said, voice tight in my throat. I just didn't know what to do with it. He didn't rush me, didn't interrupt. I kept going, heart pounding louder with each word. You made this place bearable. You made me bearable. I didn't know I could feel this kind of quiet around someone and still want more. Reyes stared down at his hands. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable, he murmured. I knew something was there. I felt it. Every time we looked at each other too long. Every time we almost touched. But I didn't want to cross that line if you didn't want me to. I did, I said, my voice trembling now. I do. His gaze met mine. Still no smile. No sudden rush. Just emotion. Heavy, thick. I used to think love had to be loud, he said softly. Explosive. Dangerous. But this thing with you, it's different. It crept in, like smoke under a door. I swallowed hard. So what are we now? I don't know, he admitted, but I don't want to pretend anymore. I nodded, my chest tight. Neither do I. Then came the pause, the kind of pause that holds every breath, every heartbeat, every unspoken word, and he reached for my face, just his fingertips brushing along my jaw, steady but hesitant. Can I? He asked. It wasn't a command. It wasn't a move. It was a question, an invitation. I leaned in just a little, and that was enough. Our foreheads touched first. Soft, grounding. I closed my eyes, letting the moment stretch. My whole body was humming, waiting, wondering. Then he kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was careful, gentle, like he was memorizing the shape of me, the way I tasted, the way I breathed, and I kissed him back, like I'd been holding my breath for years and just now remembered how to exhale. When we pulled apart, neither of us moved far. I rested my head on his shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around me. I never thought this would happen, I whispered. Me either, he said, but now I can't unfeel it. We sat there in the silence of that forgotten cell, wrapped in the soft light of a new day. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something better to come. I felt like I was in it right there in his arms. No promises made. No plans sketched. Just truth. Finally spoken. Finally heard after a while. He broke the silence. You remember that night in the showers? He asked. I nodded against his shoulder. You dropped the soap, and I handed it back. I smiled faintly. Yeah, you didn't say anything that time. He pulled back just enough to look at me, a glint of mischief in his eyes. I did. You just weren't ready to hear it. What were you saying? He leaned in close again, close enough that his breath tickled my skin. I was saying, I already cared more than I should. I pressed my forehead to his, feeling the full weight of everything that had built between us, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could grow here. Even from the concrete cracks of a prison cell, even from two men who never learned how to hope out loud. After the kiss, we didn't rush into anything. That wasn't us. Instead, we sat there for what felt like hours, bodies relaxed, shoulders touching, fingers loosely intertwined between us, like we were both trying to understand the new shape of things. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't even overwhelming. It just was. Like we'd finally arrived somewhere we were always heading. Reyes shifted beside me, letting out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. You know, he said, eyes flicking to mine, I kind of expected you to freak out. I did, I admitted. On the inside, he grinned. Did it involve pacing and dramatically questioning your life choices? Add some shallow breathing and a mild existential crisis? And yeah, pretty much. He chuckled, the sound soft and low, and leaned his head back against the cold concrete. Well, you always were good at hiding your nerves. Except for that twitch in your jaw when you lie. Seriously. Seriously, he nodded. It's tiny, but it's there. Like a little truth leak, I groaned. Great. Thought I was mysterious. You're a lot of things, he said, voice quieter now. But mysterious isn't one of them. I looked at him. What am I then? Reyes turned his head slightly, the light catching just enough to show the softness in his eyes. You're kind, stubborn, smarter than you let on. And you feel things deeply. But you pretend like you don't. I swallowed. You've been paying attention. Of course I have, he said simply. Since the first week, when you helped that old guy with the limp carry his tray and then acted like it was nothing. We both smiled at that, a memory neither of us had spoken about, but clearly both remembered. You scare me sometimes, I said after a beat. Why? Because I don't know what this looks like out there, what happens when we're not stuck in the same four walls. What if it was just circumstance? He finished for me. I nodded. He looked down, then reached for my hand again. This time he held it fully, fingers firm and certain. I've thought about that, too, he said. I don't have a neat answer, but I know this isn't just about where we are. You don't look at someone the way I look at you if it's just boredom. I let those words sit for a second, let them settle in. I don't want to lose this, I said. I don't want to go back to pretending I didn't feel anything. Then don't, he said. Don't pretend. Not with me. We stayed, like that, hand in hand, until the sound of a guard's boots echoed down the corridor. They're finally coming, Reyes said, standing up and stretching. About time, I muttered. He looked at me then, something playful tugging at the corner of his mouth. Think they'll let us bunk together now that we're a couple? I laughed, too loud, too sudden. We're not a couple. Oh, he raised a brow. So what are we? I stepped toward him, heart still hammering, and tapped 2 fingers gently against his chest. We're figuring it out. That sounds suspiciously like commitment. Don't push it. He grinned. All right, no labels, just us. I liked that us. As messy and uncertain and fragile as it was, it felt solid, real. When the cell door finally unlocked with a groan of steel, we both blinked into the brightness of the hallway. The guard didn't even question why we were still in the same bunk, just grunted, move it, and gestured us toward the mess line. We walked together, not touching, not speaking much, but something had shifted. I didn't need to glance over to feel him beside me. Later, over breakfast, he nudged my tray with his knuckle. You gonna eat that? I raised an eyebrow. Are we already at the stealing each other's food phase of this thing? He smirked. Gotta make sure you're not just in it for my body. I choked on my coffee, trying not to laugh too loud. And somewhere between the lukewarm oatmeal and the teasing glances, I realized something else. The fear hadn't disappeared. It still curled around the edges of my thoughts. What if this didn't survive the real world? What if we messed it up? But now, for the first time, there was something stronger than the fear. There was want. There was choice. And as we walked back, toward the yard, his hand brushed mine just for a second, and I felt it again. That quiet certainty. Whatever came next, we weren't alone in it anymore. It's been 3 weeks since I walked out of the halfway house. I still flinch when a door slams too hard, still double-check behind me when I walk past a mirror, but the air out here feels different, softer, even when it's dry. No one counts your steps. No one tells you when to eat, when to sleep, when to speak. But some nights, I still dream of concrete floors and that narrow bunk. And more often than not, Reyes is in those dreams, which is why I finally made the trip. He'd mentioned the program, near the edge of the state park, said it was peaceful, long days, hot sun, silence you could feel in your teeth. The kind of work that leaves you sore in the good way. He didn't ask me to come, but he'd scribbled the address of the site on a napkin and folded it into my jacket before I left. So now I'm standing at the edge of the gravel road, red dust sticking to my shoes, watching him from a distance as he digs a trench beside a row of saplings. He doesn't see me at first. His sleeves are rolled up, neck damp with sweat, arms moving slow and sure like he's trying not to rush time. I take a few steps forward, heart rattling like it's my first day all over again. He looks up. His eyes land on me like they never forgot the shape of my face. A slow smile spreads across his lips, the kind that starts in his eyes. Took you long enough, he says, setting the shovel aside. You left me the address, I answer. Didn't think you'd actually come. I didn't think I would, either, I say, until I couldn't stop thinking about it. We just stand there for a second, letting it settle, letting it be. Then without a word, he walks over and pulls me into a hug. It's not rough or rushed. It's quiet, grounding, like he's checking that I'm real. When he pulls back, his hands linger on my shoulders. You hungry? Starving? He grins. I got 2 granola bars and a half-warm Gatorade with your name on it. I laugh. You really know how to treat a guy. We sit under a crooked mesquite tree, legs stretched out in the shade. He hands me one of the bars, and we eat in silence for a few minutes. The kind of silence you grow into, not fall into. Eventually he says, you think it's still real, this thing between us? I don't answer right away. Instead, I pull something from my pocket, a crumpled square of fabric. His sketch, the one of the yard, folded, worn, but still intact. I carried this out in my boot. I tell him. He blinks, takes it slowly. Why? Because I didn't want to forget who I was in there. And you reminded me. He's quiet for a long moment, then folds the paper and tucks it into his shirt pocket. I'm not good at this, he says finally. The future stuff. Me neither, he nods. But if you're here and I'm here, maybe we just start with that. I smile. Yeah, we just start. He leans back, one hand resting beside mine, not quite touching, just close enough. And after a moment, I reach over and thread my fingers through his dot. No big speech. No promises. We can't keep just one small action, one quiet answer. The wind picks up, rustling the trees. Will never live long enough to see full grown, but it feels good, watching them start, watching something take root. We sit there a while longer. Two men who've seen enough endings to know how rare a beginning can be. Eventually, Reyes looks over and smirks. So, you still talk in your sleep? Shut up. He laughs, head tilted back to the sky, and I can't help but smile. It doesn't matter what comes next. Not yet. For now, we're here together, and for the first time in a long time, that's more than enough.